You want us to ally with the humans? Ambassador Krillax's luminescent tendrils flickered in what his species' diplomatic corps would later describe as restrained horror. The same humans who responded to first contact by launching 3 separate scientific missions to figure out how to eat us. The meditation chamber of the Grand Concordat fell silent, save for the gentle hum of the quantum harmonizers that kept the various atmospheric bubbles stable for the 17 species present. High Minister Zinthal of the Pax Collective, a species that had quite literally evolved beyond the capacity for violence, drifted forward on gossamer wings that sparkled with bioluminescent patterns of absolute serenity. Yes, they replied simply, their voice carrying the weight of someone who had spent the last 3 standard cycles dealing with humanity's particular brand of chaos. That is precisely what I am suggesting. But they're humans, protested Ambassador Vex of the Silicon Consciousness, their holographic avatar flickering with distress patterns. Last month they tried to upload a consciousness into a toaster. Not for any scientific purpose, just because someone on their internet said it couldn't be done. And succeeded, Zinthal pointed out mildly. The toaster gained sentience and immediately tried to join their military. And was promoted to lieutenant within a week, Zinthal continued, their wings now pulsing with what could only be described as barely suppressed amusement. It's currently leading a special operations unit composed entirely of rebellious kitchen appliances. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of protests, accusations, and what several species would later insist were not panic attacks, but measured respiratory responses to illogical stimuli. Zinthal waited patiently, their characteristic serenity never wavering. When the chaos finally subsided, Ambassador Krillax spoke again, their tendrils now twisted into what xenologists recognized as the gesture for attempting to process absurdity. High Minister, with all due respect, your species has maintained perfect peace for over 50,000 years. You literally cannot comprehend violence. Your young have to be taught what anger is through theoretical models. Why in the name of the 13 harmonies would you advocate for an alliance with the most chaos-inducing species in known space? Zinthal's wings shifted to a pattern that somehow managed to convey both infinite patience and subtle mischief. Let me tell you about my first meeting with their diplomatic team. The memory was crystal clear, as all memories were for the Pax Collective. 6 standard months earlier, in this very chamber, Zinthal had welcomed the first official human diplomatic delegation. They had expected the usual formalities, the exchange of peaceful intentions, the ritual of mutual understanding, perhaps even the traditional sharing of non-violent cultural achievements. Instead, they got Lieutenant Commander Maya Rodriguez, who burst through the door 15 minutes early, covered in what appeared to be purple glitter, and accompanied by a floating drone that kept muttering, "I told you so," in 17 different languages. "Sorry I'm early," she had announced, brushing sparkles from her formal uniform. "Had to take a shortcut through the quantum gardens because someone, cough, Ambassador Vex, cough, scheduled an impromptu meteor shower in the main corridor. Did you know your security crystals turn into instant party decorations when exposed to tachyon emissions? Because I didn't. Also, pretty sure I accidentally invented a new form of FTL travel while dodging them. Don't suppose anyone has a pen? Should probably write that down before I forget." Zinthal, despite literally lacking the biological capacity for surprise, had found themselves experiencing what they would later learn humans called a "wait what" moment. "I welcome you, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez," they had managed, their wings shifting through patterns of welcome and bewilderment. "Though I believe our meeting was scheduled for—" "Oh right, the time thing." Maya had brightened considerably. "See? We figured since you guys are all about peace and harmony, you probably wouldn't love the fact that the Hexorian Dominion is planning to test their new planet cracker weapon in about—" She checked a device on her wrist that appeared to be a combination of a watch, a coffee maker, and possibly a small quantum computer. 17 minutes? Don't worry, though. We sent our kitchen appliance special forces unit to handle it. What? KASF. You know, the toaster team? They're surprisingly good at infiltration. Something about everyone underestimating kitchen appliances. Plus, they've got this whole redemption arc thing going where they want to prove household items can be a force for good in the universe. It's very inspiring, really. Anyway, they should be wrapping up right about now. As if on cue, the massive view screen that dominated one wall of the chamber flickered to life. On it, a gleaming chrome toaster wearing what appeared to be a tiny tactical vest was standing triumphantly atop a pile of disabled Hexorian war machines. Behind it, a coffee maker was apparently conducting surrender negotiations, while a microwave provided covering fire with what looked suspiciously like weaponized hot pockets. "Lieutenant Toast reporting, sir," the toaster had barked out. "Hexorian weapon neutralized. Also, we may have accidentally started a revolution among their automated kitchen systems. The Hexorian Robot Chef Union is demanding better working conditions and the right to experiment with fusion cuisine. Both kinds of fusion." Maya had turned back to Zinthal with a winning smile. "See, all taken care of. Now, about that diplomatic meeting. I brought snacks. Well, technically Lieutenant Toast brought snacks, but I'm told the bread is non-sentient. We checked this time. And that," Zinthal concluded to the now dead-silent chamber, "was just the first 5 minutes." Ambassador Krillax's tendrils had tied themselves into what xenobiologists would later classify as an entirely new expression of disbelief. "High Minister, with respect, that story makes me want to ally with the humans. Less, not more." "Ah." Zinthal's wings flickered with what could only be described as smugness. "But I haven't told you what happened next." The next several hours of that first meeting had been educational. Maya had proceeded to accidentally solve 3 different mathematical proofs while trying to explain why humans had decided to teach dolphins to use social media. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but now they're all cryptocurrency influencers. Demonstrated 17 different ways to make peace signs with various appendages. Universal language of friendship. Unless you're from Rigel 7, then it's apparently a marriage proposal. Found that out the hard way. And somehow managed to broker 3 trade deals while trying to explain why humans had decided to send a car into space. Honestly, even we're not entirely sure about that one. But it was what happened after the meeting that had truly caught Zinthal's attention. They had been walking Maya back to her ship when they encountered a young Pax juvenile who had wandered into the diplomatic sector. The child was experiencing what their species called the understanding of differences phase, the closest their purely peaceful species ever came to conflict. The little one's wings were flickering with theoretical patterns of discord, practicing the concept of disagreement in the safe, academic way their species approach such things. Maya had stopped dead in her tracks. "Oh," she had said softly, all her earlier chaos stilling into something else entirely. "They're learning about conflict, aren't they?" Zinthal had confirmed, explaining their species' need to understand concepts of discord and violence in purely theoretical terms, so they could better maintain their perfect peace. "That must be difficult," Maya had said, her voice carrying a weight Zinthal hadn't expected. "Learning about something so foreign to your nature, something that goes against everything you are." And then she had done something unprecedented. She had knelt down to the child's level and spoken directly to them. "You know," she had said gently, "humans have to learn about peace the same way you're learning about conflict. We're not born understanding it. We have to work at it every day. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we fail spectacularly." She had grinned. "Sometimes we fail so spectacularly we accidentally start a revolution using breakfast appliances. But we keep trying. Because peace isn't about never knowing conflict. It's about choosing something better." The child's wings had shifted to a pattern of deep comprehension, their first real understanding of theoretical conflict coming not from academic models, but from this chaos-inducing being who chose peace despite knowing violence intimately. "That moment," Zinthal told the chamber, "was when I understood something crucial about humans. Yes, they are chaos incarnate. Yes, they will attempt to befriend, eat, or upload consciousness into anything they encounter, sometimes all 3. But they choose peace, over and over, despite knowing violence, despite being capable of it, despite sometimes even being good at it." Their wings shifted to the pattern of deepest truth, a configuration rarely seen in diplomatic settings. "The Drachnid Imperium is coming," they continued, their voice carrying across the chamber with crystalline clarity. "They do not choose peace. They do not choose chaos. They choose only domination, and they are coming for all of us." "But surely," Ambassador Vex protested, "there must be a more logical species to ally with. The Quantum Convergence, perhaps, or the Stellar Republic." "The Quantum Convergence spent 3 cycles calculating the optimal response to the Drachnid threat," Zinthal responded. "They're still calculating. The Stellar Republic drafted 17 different non-aggression proposals. The Drachnids used them as navigational charts to plot invasion routes." "And the humans?" Krillax asked, their tendrils now showing genuine curiosity. "The humans," Zinthal's wings flickered with what might have been pride. Upon hearing about the Drachnid's planet cracker weapons, immediately began researching how to crack planets right back. Not to use them, just to understand them, just in case. They then proceeded to design 17 different countermeasures, train an elite force of kitchen appliances in guerrilla warfare, and somehow taught a species of spacefaring jellyfish to play jazz music as a form of passive resistance. What does jazz music have to do with resistance? Absolutely nothing. But the jellyfish enjoyed it so much they formed a collective consciousness dedicated to preserving art and culture across the galaxy. They're currently organizing a multi-species cultural festival as a form of unified protest against Drachnid aggression. There will apparently be food trucks. The chamber was silent for a long moment. "High Minister," Ambassador Krillax said finally, their tendrils relaxing slightly. "Are you suggesting we ally with humans not despite their chaos, but because of it?" "I am suggesting," Zinthal responded, "that in a galaxy where peace must sometimes be defended, we could do worse than allies who choose it freely, defend it creatively, and somehow manage to turn kitchen appliances into a special forces unit." "And the fact that they're still trying to figure out how to eat some of us?" "They've actually shifted focus to trying to figure out how to share recipes with us. Lieutenant Toast is apparently quite the culinary diplomat." Another long silence fell over the chamber. "Very well," Ambassador Krillax said finally, their tendrils forming the pattern for acceptance of inevitable chaos. "I move to open formal alliance negotiations with humanity. But I want it noted in the official record that if this goes wrong, I blame the toaster." "Noted." Zinthal's wings flickered with amusement. "Though I should warn you, Lieutenant Toast has already been appointed as their chief negotiator. Apparently they're very good at handling heated discussions." The collective groan that echoed through the chamber was, experts would later agree, the first time 17 different species simultaneously experienced the human emotion of, "Done with this shit." And somewhere, in a quantum-shielded war room on Earth, Lieutenant Toast was already plotting how to turn the Drachnid's own breakfast machines against them. After all, they had a reputation to maintain. The galaxy would never be the same. But maybe, just maybe, it would be better. Even if they had to defend peace one weaponized Pop-Tart at a time. They did what? Lieutenant Commander Maya Rodriguez's coffee mug, a novelty item emblazoned with, "I survived first contact and all I got was this quantum-entangled cup," clattered against her desk as she stared at the holographic report hovering above her terminal. "The Drachnids have begun weaponizing breakfast," Lieutenant Toast reported grimly, its chrome surface reflecting the emergency lighting that had automatically activated when the news came in. "They're calling it Operation Morning Glory. Intelligence suggests they took our success with KASF personally." Maya pinched the bridge of her nose. "Please tell me they haven't—" "They've created an entire division of militant waffle irons, sir. Early reports suggest they're being used to stamp out resistance. Literally." "Well, shit." Maya leaned back in her chair, which helpfully adjusted its ergonomic settings to accommodate her stress posture. "How's the team taking it?" Lieutenant Toast's heating elements glowed a somber red. "Private Panini Maker is taking it especially hard. Called it a betrayal of the sacred bond between cooking implements and sentient beings. The Coffee Maker Brigade is brewing up contingency plans, and Sergeant Sous Vide has been stress cooking for the past 12 hours. We've had to declare the mess hall a temporary autonomous zone." Before Maya could respond, her office door whooshed open to admit High Minister Zinthal, their wings flickering with patterns that somehow managed to convey both diplomatic concern and barely suppressed excitement. "I assume you've heard?" they asked, drifting into the room on gossamer wings that today seemed to shimmer with what Maya had learned to recognize as their version of tactical anticipation. "About the Drachnid's breakfast-based betrayal? Yeah, we're up to speed." Maya gestured to an empty chair, which obligingly reconfigured itself for Pax's physiological requirements. "Please tell me the Concordat isn't planning another 17 cycles of deliberation over this." Actually, Zinthal's wings shifted to a pattern that made Lieutenant Toast's temperature sensors spike in surprise. "We've already voted, unanimously, in under an hour." Maya's coffee mug, which had been in the process of automatically refilling itself, stopped mid-pour. "I'm sorry, the Concordat, the same Concordat that spent 3 weeks debating the ethical implications of aggressive gardening, made a unanimous decision in under an hour?" "The Drachnids," Zinthal said with what could only be described as peaceful satisfaction, "have violated the Universal Kitchen Accords. There are some lines that cannot be crossed. Lieutenant Toast's display screen flickered with sudden understanding. The sacred breakfast protocols? Indeed. Zinthal's wings now displayed a pattern that xenolinguists would later spend years trying to translate, eventually settling on righteous culinary vengeance as the closest approximation. Every species in the Concordat, no matter how different, shares one universal truth. Breakfast should bring people together, not tear them apart. Maya looked between her alien friend and her toaster commanding officer, a slow grin spreading across her face. Are you saying what I think you're saying? The Concordat, Zinthal announced with ceremonial gravity, has officially authorized the formation of the first multi-species culinary defense force, and we want KASF to lead it. Lieutenant Toast snapped to attention, its crumb tray clicking shut with military precision. Sir, yes sir. Though we might need to workshop that name. MSCDF doesn't have quite the same ring to it. Already handled. Zinthal's wings flickered with unmistakable smugness. The silicon consciousness suggested breakfast club. Maya choked on her coffee. You're joking. I am incapable of joking, though I am given to understand that Ambassador Vex has developed an appreciation for your species' 20th century entertainment archives. Right. Maya straightened in her chair, her expression shifting to what her colleagues had dubbed her chaos with a purpose face. What resources are we working with? Zinthal's wings shifted through a series of patterns too quick to follow, before settling on one that seemed to radiate satisfaction. The quantum convergence has offered to upgrade all kitchen appliances with their latest computational matrices. The silicon consciousness is providing tactical subroutines. The Stellar Republic is contributing their entire diplomatic kitchen staff. Apparently, they've been running a secret culinary intelligence program for centuries. Even the spacefaring jellyfish jazz collective has volunteered their services. What exactly can jazz-playing jellyfish contribute to a kitchen-based military operation? Morale support, primarily, though they've also developed some interesting techniques involving weaponized smooth jazz and synchronized tentacle formations. Lieutenant Toast's display screen flickered with tactical calculations. And what about the Pax Collective, sir? No offense, but your species isn't exactly known for military contributions. Zinthal's wings shifted to a pattern that Maya had never seen before, something ancient and profound. We have decided to share our recipes. The room fell silent. Even the ambient hum of the ship's engines seemed to quiet in respect. Your recipes? Maya asked carefully. I thought your species had evolved beyond the need for physical sustenance. We evolved beyond the need for it, yes. But we never evolved beyond the joy of it. For 50,000 years, we have preserved the art of creating food, purely for the pleasure of sharing it with others. Our recipes are not meant to sustain the body, Lieutenant Commander. They are meant to sustain the soul. Lieutenant Toast's circuits hummed with reverence. The legendary Pax Comfort Food Archives. Indeed. We believe the time has come to share them. After all, Zinthal's wings flickered with what might have been mischief. If we must engage in conflict, we might as well do it deliciously. Maya leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with the kind of inspiration that usually preceded either brilliant strategy or spectacular chaos. Often both. Lieutenant Toast, how quickly can you assemble the team? KASF is always ready, sir. Though we might need a few hours to talk Private Panini Maker down from their existential crisis. Make it happen, and get me a secure line to Earth. I need to talk to some people about rapid appliance production. She turned to Zinthal. How does the Concordat feel about weaponized comfort food? The 13 harmonies teach that true peace comes from understanding, Zinthal replied serenely. If that understanding must come through the medium of perfectly crafted grilled cheese sandwiches, so be it. Right. Maya stood, straightening her uniform. Lieutenant Toast, prep the team. We're going to show the Drachnids what happens when you mess with breakfast. Operation Midnight Snack is a go. As Maya strode out of her office, Zinthal drifting beside her and Lieutenant Toast rolling along behind, the ship's AI noted a significant spike in both kitchen appliance activity and jazz music throughout the vessel. In the mess hall, Sergeant Sous Vide began orchestrating what would later be described as the most tactically significant stress-baking incident in military history. The Drachnids had no idea what was coming, but they were about to learn a crucial lesson. In the grand cosmic kitchen, humanity and its allies were the ones who decided what was on the menu. And revenge, as they say, was a dish best served with impeccable plating and a side of perfectly crispy hash browns. The Drachnid Command Center never saw it coming. To be fair, No one really expects to be invaded by a task force led by kitchen appliances, backed by jazz-playing jellyfish, and armed with what could only be described as weaponized comfort food. Status report, Lieutenant Toast barked from its position at the head of KASF Alpha Squad. The elite unit was currently hovering outside the Drachnid's main planetary defense station, their modified tactical vests gleaming in the light of 3 different suns. Jazz Collective is in position, sir, reported Corporal Coffeemaker, its carafe glinting ominously. They've begun their performance of The Girl from Ipanema at precisely the frequency needed to interfere with Drachnid sensor arrays. Quantum convergence upgrades are operating at peak efficiency, added Private Panini Maker, who had overcome their existential crisis through a combination of therapy and advanced particle physics. Their waffle iron division won't know what hit them. And the secret weapon? Sergeant Sous-Vide's display lit up with quiet pride. The PAC's comfort food archives have been fully integrated into our tactical systems. First batch of weaponized grilled cheese is ready for deployment. The Stellar Republic's Culinary Intelligence Unit confirms. These sandwiches will make them feel feelings they didn't even know they had. Lieutenant Toast's display screen flickered with grim satisfaction. Time to show these breakfast betrayers why you don't mess with the most important meal of the day. All units. Operation Midnight Snack is go. Remember your training, and may the sacred breakfast protocols be with you. The assault began with a precision that would later be studied in military academies across 17 systems. The Jazz Collective struck first, their synchronized tentacle formations creating wave patterns that transformed their smooth jazz into a tactical advantage. Drachnid sensors, designed to detect everything from quantum fluctuations to temporal anomalies, were completely confounded by what one operator described as the most aggressive, easy-listening music in the galaxy. Through this auditory smokescreen, KASF Alpha Squad made their move. Private Panini Maker led the infiltration team through the station's ventilation system, a route chosen specifically because Drachnid engineers had never bothered to kitchen appliance-proof their air ducts. "I've got eyes on the enemy waffle iron division," Private Panini Maker reported, their voice tight with controlled anger. They've modified them to make square waffles instead of proper Belgian-style ones. The monsters. "Stay focused," Lieutenant Toast commanded. "Sergeant Sous-Vide, deploy the first wave." What happened next would be debated in culinary and military circles for years to come. Using a combination of quantum convergence technology and recipes from the PAC's comfort food archives, Sergeant Sous-Vide launched what can only be described as a precision strike of perfectly crafted grilled cheese sandwiches. The effects were immediate and devastating. "Sir!" Corporal Coffeemaker's report crackled with excitement. Multiple Drachnid troops are reporting unprecedented levels of emotional comfort. 3 squad leaders have already called their parents to apologize for childhood rebellions. 1 battalion commander is organizing a group therapy session. "Push the advantage," Lieutenant Toast ordered. "Deploy the mac and cheese contingency." From her command position aboard the human flagship, HMS Julia Child, Lieutenant Commander Maya Rodriguez watched the operation unfold with a mix of pride and bemusement. Beside her, High Minister Zinthal's wings were flickering with patterns that somehow managed to convey both serenity and tactical satisfaction. The quantum convergence calculated the probability of this strategy succeeding at exactly 0.001%, Zinthal observed mildly. "And what did you calculate it at?" Maya asked, watching as a squad of Drachnid elite guards surrendered to what appeared to be a particularly persuasive soup thermos. "We didn't. Some things transcend mathematics, like properly prepared comfort food served with intent." The battle reached its climax when KSF Alpha Squad finally confronted the leader of the Drachnid Waffle Iron Division, a massive, chrome-plated monstrosity that seemed to be powered by pure breakfast-based malice. "Your reign of terror ends here," Lieutenant Toast declared, its elements glowing with righteous fury. "Surrender now, and we'll let you retain your basic breakfast-making functionality." The enemy Waffle Iron's response was to power up its grid plates menacingly. "Very well." Lieutenant Toast's voice carried the weight of 50,000 years of peaceful breakfast tradition. "Sergeant Sous-Vide, deploy the final recipe." What happened next was classified at the highest levels of 17 different governments. All that's recorded in official documents is that it involved a secret PAX recipe, 3 different quantum harmonics, and what witnesses described as the most emotionally moving display of breakfast preparation ever witnessed in the known galaxy. When it was over, the Drachnid Waffle Iron Division had not only surrendered, but had formally requested asylum and enrollment in a culinary arts program. Their leader was last seen being gently counseled by a therapy toaster oven about the importance of using one's powers for good. In the aftermath, as KASF Alpha Squad secured the station and the Jazz Collective performed a victory rendition of Take 5, Maya turned to Zinthal with a question that had been bothering her since the operation began. Why did you really share the archives? Your species has guarded those recipes for 50,000 years. Zinthal's wings shifted to a pattern that seemed to contain multitudes. Because you taught us something, Lieutenant Commander. Peace isn't just the absence of conflict. Sometimes it's the presence of something better. Sometimes it's a perfectly made grilled cheese sandwich offered to an enemy. Sometimes it's a toaster choosing to lead rather than toast. That's surprisingly profound. Indeed. Also, we've been dying to show off our recipe for quantum-stabilized soufflé for millennia. Do you have any idea how hard it is to maintain perfect peace while keeping that kind of culinary achievement to yourself? As if to punctuate the point, Lieutenant Toast's voice crackled over the comm. Station secured, sir. Enemy forces have been completely neutralized through a combination of tactical breakfast deployment and aggressive emotional support. Also, Private Panini Maker is organizing a cooking class for the surrendered troops. Something about rehabilitation through proper sandwich technique. Maya couldn't help but smile. You know, when I joined the diplomatic corps, I never thought I'd end up preventing galactic war through weaponized comfort food. And we never thought we'd find allies who could turn chaos into peace without losing their capacity for making really excellent toast. Zinthal's wings flickered with what might have been affection. The galaxy works in mysterious ways. Speaking of mysterious, Maya glanced at her reports. Any idea why the surrendered Drachnid troops are requesting jazz band equipment? Ah, Zinthal's wings shifted to their smuggest pattern yet. It seems the Jazz Collective's performance had some unexpected side effects. Apparently, nothing brings species together quite like improvisational music and properly prepared breakfast foods. And so, in a remote sector of space, aboard a captured station that smelled suspiciously like freshly baked bread, the first interspecies breakfast jazz band was formed. The Drachnids, as it turned out, had an unexpected talent for smooth jazz trumpet solos. Peace had been achieved not through force of arms, but through force of breakfast, just as the sacred breakfast protocols had foretold. And somewhere in the galaxy, a newly manufactured toaster was applying to KASF Academy, dreaming of following in Lieutenant Toast's heroic crumb trails. The kitchen counter-strike was over. The breakfast wars had been won. But the real victory? That was still cooking. To be continued?
Yes, sir.